Thank you for joining us today. Today, we're going to spend a brisk 25 minutes to talk about network encryption redefined and how post-quantum cryptography safeguards telecom. So let's jump right in. A little bit of background. The term post-quantum is thrown around quite a bit, but I think post-quantum actually refers to a broader kind of modernization of cryptography. It's said that up to 25% of the global encrypted data has already been harvested by foreign nation states. It's encrypted using asymmetric cryptography, which makes it vulnerable for decryption at a later point. Another interesting fact is that only about a quarter of the companies out there are actively monitoring their cryptography and threats. So we're kind of in a situation. I was a CIO in my past life. We've got, a significant amount of cryptographic debt that really is unclear to us as an organization. Also, approximately 56% of TCP and UDP connections are unencrypted. And of the remaining, up to 80% have weaker implementations and flaws in the encryption, making it defeatable. So it's a little bit of background on cryptography as a whole. We've had a foundation of cryptography for, 30 years, and it's been very trustworthy. And now, with artificial intelligence, the coming quantum, just brute force, we have large swaths of our organization that are vulnerable. Little background on QSecure and its capabilities, and then we'll jump right in. We've got a really exciting guest today. So QSecure's product called QProtect is a network orchestration platform that does continuous discovery, monitoring, threat monitoring, policy enforcement, active remediation, and real-time inventory reporting, and then a cryptographic bill of material. So what it does is it's continuously monitoring the network for vulnerabilities, building out a CBOM or cryptographic bill of material, giving the ability to automatically enforce policy, and then one-click remediation. It runs over what you have right now, so you don't need to add any hardware. It's all software based, and it's a full cycle of cryptography management. Little architecture. So the QProtect product runs either in the cloud, it can run on hardware. We have an air gap solution for highly sensitive environments, but you can drop the orchestrator in, software based. And then the orchestrator talks to a cryptographic module at each layer of the OSI stack. So if you're talking to a router or a firewall, we helped co-author the IETF submission with Cisco. It gives you then the ability then to orchestrate cryptography policies, zero trust fabrics, telemetry throughout the core layer. Think of it kind of like a SOC QKD offering. And then from the network layer, the app stack layer, we can butt right up against the application layer. It said, average large organizations can have thousands of applications that have embedded cryptography. And this push to kind of modernize all the cryptography at the app layer, it's very cumbersome, very hard to do. A lot of these implementations of cryptography at the application layer were put in when the application was deployed, and there's you no longer have the ability then to swap out or upgrade the crypto. And I think we're all on this path to kind of adopt TLS 1.3 certificate rotations at 47 days. So this crypto modernization process really we find interesting at the network layer. And then at layer 7, we've got this capability then to interoperate with whatever browsers, whatever app layer you have. And then we also have full integration in Seam source. So we get telemetry back, extensive telemetry from any endpoint. In fact, at the network layer, which we're going to talk about today, largely, we can pull back Yang models from routers. So significant telemetry that then you can feed to your Seam sort of choice. So just a key takeaway before I move on to the next slide, software-based, runs over what you got right now. Heal the network approach, has policy enforcement, zero trust fabric, telemetry, separate control and data plane back. So Just a couple use cases. We're going to talk today a lot about provisioning, telco provisioning, and how this can be an additive product, both from a revenue source and a capability source um, for provisioning circuits. Like I said, I was a CIO, and this concept of being able to kind of provision, communications so they are fully post-quantum orchestrated and have, threat telemetry is very attractive, from a network perspective in terms of ease. But, we've got some pretty extensive experience in space, extensive experience in cloud. We work largely very closely with cloud providers for tactical edge. And then a lot of work in the government. And obviously, the government has been a really big driver in deploying post-quantum. You saw, I think 2 weeks ago, there was an executive order from the White House mandating the transition to post-quantum. So we're all seeing kind of in the last month a real big uptick in the seriousness around moving to what's next in active crypto agile orchestration. Just a couple use cases. So we're all seeing a lot of activity in government, both DoD and civilian. And then telco, I think telco is hugely active. We're going to talk about that in a minute, because it's one, a revenue generator, and two, the core of the network is largely driven by telco. So this adoption and transition to, a crypto agile post-quantum network will be led by the telcos. But also a lot of activity in banking, in energy, in pharma. It's like I said, it just seems like, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but in the last couple months, there's really been a light lit about the importance of really understanding what the cryptographic inventory threats we have, and then being able to actively remediate them and build a C-bomb so we understand at any point where our vulnerabilities are and where we need to focus our attention. So, on that note, I'd like to introduce Stacy Williams. I'm really excited about having Stacy here with us today. Stacy is a business unit CISO at T-Mobile. He's had a really fantastic career in IT risk security across multiple industries, including banking, consulting, gaming, government, manufacturing, retail, streaming media, and telecom. And I personally love seeing CISOs and CIOs that really have broad and extensive experience across all these business domains. It just brings such a rich knowledge set to the job. And now, Stacy's in telco where, she's servicing, they're servicing everyone. So Stacy, welcome on board and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, it's great. Great. We're going to dive right in. And, we talked about it briefly, but large organizations can have thousands of applications with embedded crypto, in addition to legacy cryptography spread throughout their networks. And the idea of addressing this transition to post-quantum at the network level is very compelling. Can you discuss the significant opportunity for telcos to streamline the transition to post-quantum crypto agile networks?
Sure. Definitely. I think telcos face a complex challenge with cryptography deeply embedded in the thousands of applications and services and network functions that exist within the telco environment. But the complexity, I think, also provides a very unique opportunity in the ability to accelerate and centralize a shift to post-quantum and crypto agile infrastructures at the network level, rather than fighting frightened or fragmented battles across individual systems.
That's great. That's great. I know we have there's a lot of vulnerabilities cloud to cloud, data center to data center. So if you can address this as you provision a circuit, really significant that you could have monitoring, cryptographic monitoring, crypto agility, network agility, just provisioned out with the circuit. Just moving on to kind of, we're focused today a little around the revenue model for telco. One thing we find really attractive is that if it's a revenue opportunity, that It changes the dynamic. So, do you envision telcos adopting quantum resilience as a service models, and how might that shift the security vendor landscape?
Yeah, I definitely think that quantum resilience as a service is a highly plausible and even probably a strategic direction for telcos to adopt, particularly those that are seeking to extend their roles beyond connectivity and into a broader security as a service ecosystem.
Yeah. So you're seeing this kind of uptick in the value-added services at the network layer, and yeah, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, I think that telcos are well positioned to offer quantum resilience as a service on a couple of levels, from an infrastructure control level, from a trusted provider position level, and even an API and cloud native ecosystem level. I think those are all areas where telcos can offer quantum resilience as a service. Sorry.
Yeah, that's great. Um, yeah, that's fantastic. So, another question: post-quantum migration can sound expensive to boards. What ROI models do you think telcos can present to leadership to justify near-term investment?
I think telcos can build compelling ROI models that basically reframe quantum readiness as a business enabler, a risk mitigator, and a strategic differentiator. And I know a lot of times within a board, boards see the whole discussion of post quantum as kind of a cost center, an area where you're just going to kind of dump money into and not get any return on that investment. But I think some of the arguments that you can put towards that is basically identifying spending now to modernize cryptographic infrastructures, and it prevents far more costly emergency overhauls when quantum threats ultimately materialize.
Yeah, one thing, it's interesting. We're seeing a lot of boards and C-level execs pushing this initiative down. We've been in environments where, there are CEOs at the White House, and they came back and said, okay, it's time to get going. And one thing we're seeing is that there's kind of a crown jewels approach to this now. Like, if you're in pharma, it's your recipes and taking a crown jewels approach to and this is a quick enabler to kind of starting to address that crown jewels in your organization. Really helps the board level kind of get a win. Like you get a quick win.
Yeah.
Uh, you definitely get a quick win.
Yeah,
Um,
I think at the board level, the message that you have to sell from an ROI perspective as it relates to post quantum is, migration to post quantum isn't just about defense, but it's about unlocking the crypto agility and enabling new services, and building sustainable, secure telco ecosystems. The cost of waiting could be irreversible, both in trust and in operational risk.
yeah, that's great. Great point. And then, we're all faced with this situation where we're all trying to migrate to TLS 1.3 and rotate certificates at a frequency that's not 20 years. Um, so as an enabler to that, like as a C-level exec, if you can come in and say, we can get you to, minus the post-quantum, which is super important, but I can get you
Yeah.
to the latest revision in transport. I can get you cycling keys. I can get certs. It really enables just this broader set of problems I have from a security perspective where I'm just way behind,
Mhm.
and the like. It's a small percentage of companies monitor cryptography and associated threats. We talked about this a little. Um, you know, so this concept of, is there an opportunity for organizations to gain this visibility, during this upgrade cycle, and just if you could talk about that just a little.
Sure. I think the upgrade cycle presents kind of a rare and strategic opportunity for telcos to gain both internal and external visibility by taking a leadership stance in cryptographic modernization and cyber resilience. I think while most organizations still treat cryptography as a set and forget component, telcos can differentiate themselves by turning this into invisible function into a visible trust asset.
Yeah, I like this. Thank you so much. That was really clear. I like this concept, because at the network layer, we have this concept of SD-WAN, which is software orchestration of the network. We like to think of the crypto side as crypto SD-WAN, where you have monitoring, you have full control of a service mesh throughout the network. And so it's just an extension of this software-driven network where, in addition to network telemetry and everything, now you've got cryptographic telemetry. You've got kind of the whole robust set of capabilities and to bring us into a software-enabled network.
Yeah.
Um, cool. Um, Another question. So, this concept of crypto agility, has been coming on really strong. That post quantum was really the focus, and then crypto agility, NIST has come out. Many organizations, governmental and others, have come out and talked about crypto agility as an important element of deploying it. Because, yeah, obviously, if we make the upgrade and then we have to make it again in 6 months, that's problematic from that perspective. So, how critical are crypto agility and centralized cryptographic orchestration for telcos to ensure long-term survivability against evolving quantum threats? And how do you see orchestration platforms simplifying this agility?
Yeah, I think they're absolutely critical for telcos to maintain long-term survivability in the face of quantum threats and other evolving cryptographic challenges.
Yeah. That's great. So yeah, again, this concept where I can swap out both cryptography keys. Another element that we're seeing a lot on the crypto agility side is that countries are kind of identifying their own libraries and their own implementations of the chems. So we're going to be in a situation in the near future, we believe, where there's going to need to be a translation hub between Frodo-Chem in Germany and K-Chem in Korea, and Amazon's gonna has their own library sets. So we're gonna be in agility is gonna take on a whole new meaning around communication translation between these different chems and different libraries and different key structures. So it's kind of the big context of crypto agility, versus kind of the big CA versus the little CA.
Yeah, I would definitely say, Dave, that without crypto agility and orchestration, post quantum adoption becomes fragmented and fragile. With them,
Yeah.
telcos have the ability to gain programmable, resilient, and compliant cryptographic substrate.
Yeah, I think it's exciting to see a future where you really have secure communications,
Mhm.
where just the nature of these communications are zero trust based. They are policy based. They have the ability to adapt to threats in real time as the threats are occurring. And I mean, clearly the way they were architected, I was on with one of the main architects of the internet 30 years ago, and he's like, well, no one just ever expected what we have now. And so there's an exciting future where we can just guarantee that these communications are secure, adaptive, zero trust. And so from an organizational perspective, getting there, I think it's I'm sure Stacy, you work 7 days a week and your BlackBerry is going off at 3 in the morning. I'm an old guy, so I'm talking about my BlackBerry buzzing on the nightstand.
I'm right there with you.
But it's exciting to see the opportunity maybe in the future where those connections, communications are really, really tight and guaranteed. I don't know if anyone's put any comments or questions in the chat. Brandon, do you have any questions we want to cover, or we can go on to final thoughts?
Yeah, Dave, we've got one from Elliot. What is the visibility of the telemetry? Just what apps are accessed basically right, not activities inside the app because that's encrypted? Or can someone at the admin level use this product to turn on decrypt and see behavior within the app?
Yeah, so the orchestration platform monitors all cert activity, beautifully paints cert trees, all cryptographic activity. So depending upon the layer in the network, you get more and less. At layer 2, we get all the Yang model, like literally configuration data. We get everything, like a huge amount of data. At the app layer, you're seeing what's actually happening, what's actually being communicated. One, I think, important note related to that is that we've adopted this emerging standard of Cyclone DX. So this kind of robust telemetry model. I think when people talk about CBOM and telemetry, often they mean very different things. We're trying to have a significantly comprehensive approach. In terms of the actual data, we work with Sentinel and we work with Splunk, we work with Elk, fully cloud enabled. So wherever you want to feed that telemetry back, it comes back through the control plane. So we've separated the control and the data plane and the transmission. So you don't see any performance hit, but you can basically see every element of telemetry coming back, and then you can feed it into your operational systems, or we have mechanisms to analyze the threats associated with application crypto and then crypto on the wire and the likes. So, but I'd be glad, that's a really big topic, would be glad to kind of jump in that with you offline and really walk you through. It's some really cool capability to understand what's happening, what the threat around it is, and then all the associated metadata related to it in your operational systems or in our control plane. Yeah. Good. Is that it, Brandon?
Yep, that's it for questions, Dave.
Excellent. Stacy, any final thoughts? I really appreciate your feedback and your knowledge and your just depth around this subject. It's an emerging topic, right? So it's very emerging. And any final thoughts before we slip to the next slide?
Yeah, I would definitely say that it's extremely emerging, and it's very wide open from the standpoint of. I was having a conversation with someone a couple of days ago, and we were talking about uh, the Constitution and how it was written in the 1700s with no thought or idea of how things are today, or you probably wasn't even conceivable of where things could go to from a political standpoint. I think the same thing exists here within this particular technology. We're just on the cusp of where it's starting, and the future is just so broad, and I'm excited to at least see where it's starting off at, and I can't imagine where it's going to ultimately end up at.
Yeah, that's an awesome comment, Stacey. And I think we're all here for one reason, that's to create a safer future, to your point, right? More perfect union, safer future. I like your analogy to the Constitution. So if my contact info is here, it's dave@qsecure.com, and we can certainly hook you up with Stacy if you have any questions. We are seeing just an intense amount of activity now across the enterprise scale and government and globally. So it's a great time to jump in this. And our thesis is, heal the network first. It's easier to do, and the like. If you have any questions, just feel free to reach out. And yeah, sounds good. Thank you so much, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Stacy, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate being here.
Okay, take care. Ciao.
Yep. Bye.